Before he was the fall guy, Ryan Gosling played another very different kind of Hollywood stuntman in Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive. This is of course a crime noir film that asks us the ever important question, what does it mean to be a real human being and a real hero? Greetings, Designing Hollywood movie fans and beyond. I am your host, Oliver Ricketts. Drive is now 10 years old, and when I think of this movie, the first thing I think of is career-defining performances for Ryan Gosling. This is before he was Ken, before he refused to eat his cereal, before La La Land, and for a long time, this was the movie that you thought of when you thought Gosling. And it's no wonder why, because not only is this an amazing performance, but he's so good in the movie that he actually had a little bit of Kramer syndrome afterwards. If you saw Ryan Gosling show up in a film, he was probably playing some variation of the nameless driver from Drive. Whether this be Nicholas Winding Refn's own Only God Forgives, or the following year's Place Beyond the Pines. Before he was able to return to more humorous roles like what he did in Crazy Stupid Love, with movies like The Nice Guys, Barbie, and now The Fall Guy, Ryan Gosling had a little typecast career of being a brooding yet cool, aloof, sociopathic killer. And this type of performance and public perception of who he was as an actor stayed with him as late as 2018's First Man. But today, when you look at Drive, even knowing the context of Ryan Gosling's later career, it's so easy to see why that happened to him. He's so perfect in the fabric of what makes Drive, and he disappears into this movie. And the movie itself is so immersive and enthralling that you, the audience, disappear into the film as well. And folks, if you're the type of movie viewer that can spend the afternoon getting lost in a movie like I did recently with Drive, you'll definitely want to subscribe to this YouTube channel and like this video so that you see more like it. Here on this channel, I do reviews of some of the year's newest movies, as well as deep dives into older movies to tell you why I love them so much. We also just produce a large amount of movie-related content here on Designing Hollywood in general, so if you are a film fan, you'd never want to miss it. In Drive, Ryan Gosling stars as a Hollywood stuntman who doubles as a getaway driver for heists. His life takes a perilous turn when he becomes romantically involved with his neighbor, played by Carey Mulligan, whose husband's criminal dealings entangle him in a deadly game of deceit and danger. As he navigates the dark streets of Los Angeles, he's forced to confront his own moral compass to safeguard the woman he loves from the brutal consequences of their shared fate. And this movie is just the definition of the phrase captivating. There's truly no other way to describe it. Just so simple. A stuntman who is also a getaway driver, who falls in with the wrong people and gets involved with a job he can't pull off. You've seen this movie before, but not tonally quite like this. And part of why this movie is so captivating comes down to how no scene is wasted in this screenplay. This isn't a movie with a lot of fat on it at all, coming in at under 2 hours, which is something that, as someone who watches a lot of movies, I've really come to appreciate more and more. There's just enough here to make you care about Ryan Gosling's nameless stunt driver, even if he is a violent sociopath. Just enough to make you attached to Bryan Cranston's auto shop owner, even if you can't really trust him. Just enough to make you feel for Carey Mulligan and her son, even if you've just met them. And it all starts from the moment the production company logos roll at the beginning of the film. Drive has one of my favorite opening sequences in any movie, period. We learn everything we need to know about how Ryan Gosling functions in this criminal underworld, his rules, his limitations, how he sees himself, all in the span of one gritty, realistic car chase. Gosling gives his famous speech, "I drive," as we watch him acquire a civilian Chevy Impala, one of the most common cars in Los Angeles, to pull off a getaway drive under the radar. And we listen as he explains that anything that happens in that 5-minute window where the job is being pulled off, he's there to assist the criminals who hired him. Anything after that, he's taking off and they're on their own. The whole thing is absolutely thrilling. And understanding right off the bat the amount of stealth and maneuvering required to do what Gosling's character does makes us, the audience, feel like we too are along for the heist. And from that incredible opening, we are treated to a movie that does not relent. Much like Reservoir Dogs, this is a heist movie where you never actually see the real heist go down. Gosling is not a robber or a gunman. He waits outside in his car as the crimes go down. So that's where we wait as well. But this just makes it more effective when we actually do see a crime take place, because that's when the crime is seeping over into Ryan Gosling's life, at the same time as we are experiencing the crimes for the first time as the audience. We feel connected to him. And this leads me to our question of the day. In the comments below, let me know, what is your favorite heist movie? It could be Drive, it could be The Italian Job, it could be another film that we haven't mentioned here. No matter what it is, I want to hear about it, so let me know in the comments below. Another huge element that Drive has going for it that cements it as one of my favorite crime noir films is its efficiency in violence. And notice I didn't say action. Drive is not an action movie, but it is a violent one. This is grounded, real-life violence found in any cautionary tale about how crime doesn't pay. And part of that is that this movie's runtime isn't actually that violent percentage-wise. The violence is actually used here very sparingly until the last act. And even then, there are definitely times where a lesser filmmaker would have included more gruesome murders. But when I say efficiency in violence, I mean it, because the violent scenes, when they do come around, are shockingly violent. Heads are caving in, people are getting stabbed, blood is splattering. But because it's used so sparingly, you never become numb to it. It is always shocking when it happens. It always gets that visceral reaction out of you, the audience member. Because you almost get lulled into a false sense of security from one violent sequence to another, waiting for another huge outburst in moments of calm. And in this way, the violence in this movie is a lot like violence in real life. Outside of that real life feel, the violence also adds to the tragedy of this film. Because make no mistake, Drive is a tragedy. You want Ryan Gosling's character to be able to leave it all behind, run off with Carey Mulligan and her family, and maybe even become a part of that family. But at the same time, when you see him get in that getaway car in the movie's opening sequence, you know that this film can only end one way. Nobody gets what they want, and everybody gets hurt. There is a death towards the end of this movie that is simultaneously both so violent and so disturbingly gentle. Like, the killer doesn't even want to be killing the victim. And it's played in such a way that it stuck with me ever since I saw this movie 10 years ago in 2013. But call me crazy, because despite all of that tragedy, I actually find something about Drive to be very uplifting. Let me explain. Ryan Gosling is made out to not only be aloof and distant in this movie, he's also strangely charming. There's no denying something is not quite right. This is a character who equal opportunity beats and murders men and women, and has no problem going after his enemies with a hammer. But he also isn't like the sociopaths you find in other films. This is not a detestable psychopath like Patrick Bateman, or even a lovable one like Tony Soprano. You want to root for Ryan Gosling's driver in this movie from the moment he steps on screen. From the interactions with the young boy, which are straight up paternal, to his dry sense of humor. There is a straight up charismatic nature to this performance, and I feel like it is sometimes overlooked in the grand scope of the movie. And as such, I feel it is only natural that we connect with the character's true inner quest to find out if he has what it takes to be a real human being, to see if he can actually connect with this world that he's living in, to find out what it means to be a real hero, just like the theme song by College in the Electric Youth. And at the end, I actually think a strong argument can be made that the driver did become a real hero. Because broad strokes, a hero will sacrifice their own well-being and safety for the ones they love and the innocents. Now this goes without saying, but since I'm going to talk about the end of this film, if you haven't seen it, you may want to fast forward a little bit. There will be spoilers in this next segment, so if you don't want to be spoiled, go to this time code that's on screen now. Everybody gone? And if you have seen Drive or you don't care, let's talk about the end. At the end of this film, Albert Brooks's crime boss, which by the way is such a refreshing change of pace for this actor, tells Ryan Gosling's character that if he gives him his money that was stolen in the heist, Carey Mulligan and her son will go free. They will be safe. They will never run into Brooks's men again. But Ryan Gosling himself will spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, knowing that one day Albert Brooks or one of his associates will come to kill him. And Gosling does hand over the money, and surprising no one, he's attacked anyway. And although he successfully murders Brooks, Gosling drives away without the money, knowing that Carey Mulligan is safe and he has kept up his end of the deal. The movie also leaves it unclear if Gosling's character actually dies. He's been stabbed pretty seriously in the film's final moments. But as we see him drive away into the sunset, we know that even if he does survive, he will be living that life of fear that Brooks described to him. Always looking over his shoulder, never able to stay in one place, never truly safe. But he does it knowing that his loved ones will be safe. And tell me honestly, what is more heroic than that? And although this character has violent and sociopathic tendencies, and he's tempted by crime, his motivations throughout the entire film are actually very selfless and very heroic. He steps up to help Oscar Isaacs, the husband of the woman he loves, carry out one last job so that he and his family can be safe and go somewhere different, likely far away from him. Again, a misguided act, but certainly a selfless one. And in doing so, he loses everything, not even taking the cash as a reward as he drives away. It's a complex character turn, and it somewhat goes against all of the trappings of crime noir that we've come to expect from this genre. And at the same time, it's one of the most memorable and profound moments in this entire movie. Of course, costume designer Aaron Banash also is a big part of creating a one-of-a-kind look for this film. Next to me is Ryan Gosling's jacket from Drive, one of the most iconic pieces of clothing in modern cinema. And when I saw it in this film, I just had to have one for myself. Now, if you were impressed with any of Ryan Gosling's looks in this film or any of his later films, you'll want to check out our interview on the Designing Hollywood podcast with celebrity stylist Mark Avery. Mark has worked with Ryan Gosling, among other celebrities, many times throughout his career, both on screen and off camera at events like red carpet premieres. We got to dive deep with Mark Avery into his collaborations with the costume department, with the celebrities who work with him themselves. It's a really fascinating interview about a side of the industry that I personally think we don't hear much about. I'll link that interview as well as the full series in the description below. At the end of the day, Drive is a seedy, violent crime noir film that somehow still has an uplifting message at the end. We can find a hero in ourselves no matter what has happened to us or who we are. Or at the very least, that's what I took away from this. And what is art if not what you pull out of it? And if you are interested in hearing my takes on any other films like Drive or the countless other movies that I review right here on the Designing Hollywood YouTube channel, you'll want to give this video a like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of it. And by the way, if you love movies and you want to support movie-related businesses and you live in Southern California, be sure to check out our sponsor, Gardena Cinema. This family-owned theater plays so many of my favorite films, including but not limited to Drive itself. And if you follow them on Instagram, I'm sure you'll find a showing that fits your own taste in the movies you like. As always, their website and Instagram will be linked below as well. For Designing Hollywood, I'm Oliver Ricketts, and until next time, get out there and go see a movie.